I'm Matt Landau from VRMB, and this is Unlocked, Season 9, Home Runners. Today's episode features Sharon Walker, who's the founder of Walker Luxury. And I've known Sharon for a number of years, but only recently got to know her better at the Keystone Retreat that we did in August in Tennessee. And it was here that I learned that Sharon likes lime juice, like a lot, and don't even joke around with the bottle of fake lime juice. Real lime juice is what Sharon likes. It was also at the Keystone Retreat that I learned about Sharon's bigger calling in life. She's a religious woman and a mother and a wife. And the way she runs her business is about something much bigger than herself. I admittedly am not much of a religious person, but I have found that proximity to people different from me tends to offer up some of my best discoveries. And in this interview, we talk about how Sharon took me to church, how she basically runs her world-class vacation rental operation from her bedroom, why she invests so heavily and how specifically in her team, and as a mother, what big looming threat she saw coming to her destination before anybody else did. And since I am famous for ruining the end of TV shows and movies before my friends have seen them, I will spoil that last one for you here. The threat that Sharon saw coming was unfair regulation, and it is most likely coming to your destination next if it hasn't already. Sharon is actually also featured this week in another podcast that VRMB produces, How to Save Your Vacation Rental Business, hosted by Dana Lubner. The title of that episode featuring Sharon is Don't Mess with Texas, which basically sets the stage for our conversation here as well. Don't mess with Sharon. Oh, and I am experimenting with a new element this week. If you hear a little bell sound that goes like this, that's a clue that your ears should perk up because the segment that follows is important enough to be featured in VRMB's 2023 Trends Report. And that report will come out the first week of January each year, so be sure to sign up for our newsletter so you can get the early bird special pricing. Now, this episode is brought to you by Point Central, the leaders in smart home automation, and Breezeway, a property care and operations platform. And as with every episode this entire season, we've kicked off the interview with Sharon, asking, what does the phrase home runners mean to you?
The people who are hitting it out of the park, if I can say it simply.
And do you consider yourself one?
Yes.
I sense some hesitation in that voice.
Because it's not me, it's my team. So I was a home runner when I started this business, and I'm definitely still am, but it's my team who does all of the work now. So I'm more project based, and so I hesitate to say that it's me because it's not me, it's my whole team.
And I know you had a previous life in sales, but I actually don't know when you started Walker Luxury and how it started.
So I did have a previous life in sales, and then I had a baby. And back then people said things in places of work like, you sure do take long breaks to go and pump and do motherly things. And when I went back to work, and I'm sure I would have filed a lawsuit at this point, but back then people said stuff like that. And so I felt completely rejected at work. And at the same time, they changed my commission structure. So I quit my job. And then my husband sells appliances. And this was in 2009. So his company was going, and his sales and commissions were doing the same thing. And so we had just moved into basically our brand new, big, shiny, very, very expensive house. And it was either spend our life savings trying to stay in that house and probably end up in foreclosure or figure out something else. We put it up on HomeAway because we were here in Austin, and HomeAway was a new company in Austin.
And what year was this?
2010.
Okay.
We put it up on HomeAway and hoped for the best. And it went really well, and neighbors started asking. And then we had South by Southwest. So I needed to find a place to stay for some people who were having trouble. And I sent out an email to 30 people. Will you open your home to these guests? I got 15 yeses and realized that there was a business opportunity there. My business started as a non-traditional vacation rental management company in that I rented people's actual residences. So they left their home to allow for festival guests during South by Southwest, Formula One, and ACL, which is Austin City Limits Music Festival here in Austin. And they allowed people to stay in their home. And that was because Austin didn't have enough hotel rooms at the time. Uh, 5 years down the road, Austin had added between 8 and 10,000 hotel rooms. So we didn't need to put people in people's private residences anymore. That was no longer a necessity. So we changed our business model to become a traditional vacation rental management company.
So I'm curious because nowadays the professional vacation rental management community has evolved a great deal. And there's a whole generation of people who are just getting started, and they're getting started in very unique ways, let's just say creative ways. I think it's a very accessible industry in this sense. You don't necessarily need to have conventional resources to suddenly become a hospitality professional. Do you have any perspective, considering you kind of came from that innovative um, invention, inventive uh, spark for this new class who are doing things very different from our colleagues?
I don't really know much about it, to be honest. I'm so inundated and consistently in communication with people who have been doing this for a long time and are like true professionals that I am not often um, given the opportunity to encounter someone who's just doing it as a hobby. Um, Through advocacy, I have met people who are doing it. They're just new and they're just starting their businesses. Um, but I haven't had a ton of encounters with people who are just renting their one house.
Because it's a really interesting sort of dilemma in a lot of ways for an industry that's trying to prove itself professionally. You, we can't ignore the fact that nobody starts as a professional, at least historically, nobody has. And some kind of entry point, some kind of guidepost to welcome those individuals in is necessary. But on the same time, it's those individuals typically who, when they do things the wrong way, earn us the headlines, right?
Yeah, I just think that, if I were talking to somebody who I just met that was just starting, I would say, like with me, necessity creates innovation. So find where the industry is lacking from your own experience and try to fix it. We do need people to come in and make changes to the industry, and changes that neither you and I can necessarily foresee because it'll happen and then we'll look back and go, oh, I'm so glad that happened. But I think that would be my big encouragement is figure out what you don't like about how the industry looks now and come up with a way to fix it.
Love that. And you also have this dual perspective because you've been doing this long enough that you've made so many inroads in the professional side, a lot of whom are exhausted at this point. They've been doing it for 5, 10, in some case 15 or 20 years. What is the flip advice that you tend to give those folks? Because I do think you are on the very much the leading edge of that generation.
Let go. Let go. I mean, for me, it's trust God. So I had to take a step back and I had to identify what I wanted my life to look like. And I don't care whether you believe in God or something different. If you want to have work life balance, if you want to be able to enjoy your career, then you have to be preparing other people to take your place. Because what do they say? If you're in a position and you want to grow out of that position, you have to prepare the next person to grow into your position in order for you to be able to grow out of that position. That applies for anybody in any company, but it really applies for somebody who owns the company. And I think I've also heard the statistic that if somebody can do it 80% as well as you can, then they should be doing it. So every owner that is super struggling, I feel like is doing that because they don't want to let go of control and they don't want to try new things. And they're working from a place of fear, which I feel like is coming from a place of scarcity. And the good thing about God is he makes us feel like we have abundance. And so you can work from a place of abundance, which means you're not working from a place of fear. You're working from a place of joy and That just allowed me to step back, give control to other people, empower my employees, empower my teammates, really, and make sure that they knew you're going to mess up as much as I did, and you'll take responsibility and we'll move forward. And we're going to celebrate the wins. We'll work on the losses together. But ultimately, it's all about like me as a leader empowering other people so that I don't have to do it all. My husband is struggling with this right now. I hesitate to say that because I don't want to throw him under the bus. He's working very hard to get through it. He's hiring key people. But all I tell him all the time is if you give someone the answer, you're not empowering them to come up with the answer. Um, if you work with people to do it themselves, or if you just tell them you trust them to do it themselves. So like what we're working on right now is the big question. Anytime anybody calls and asks a question, the answer is, what do you think we should do? And that's so empowering to people. And if you continue to do that and then you celebrate their wins and you work with them on the things that are messed up, then they just grow into these. I mean, I've watched people grow in my company into these. In all of my employees, we just hired our first guy. So I work with a bunch of women, and all of them are such powerful workhorse women that are just like, they're forces to be reckoned with. And I feel like I took a little part in that in empowering them constantly. So that's something that I would tell other people to do is take a step back and figure out how to empower your people. You'll never feel more. I feel so, as a business owner, I feel so not encapsulated, but protected. I have this protection, this hedge of protection around me because I have such an incredible team.
I have to take this opportunity to let everybody know that this Jewish boy went to church.
Yes, he did. And he listened to
This
me
Jewish
sing.
this Jewish boy went to church. Sharon invited me to church, and I was expecting kind of a little classical church. I was expecting, Sharon to be sitting in a long white dress and to be standing up and singing. But in fact, it was much more like a NBA arena. I was really, really engaged. I was singing, I think, and it was a wonderful window into your um, spirituality. But I also learned in visiting you there in Austin that the majority of your work, and maybe this is a testament to your last point of entrusting in your team and empowering your team, is actually done from your bed.
Yep.
Like, to share with our listeners what a normal day in the life of Sharon Walker Luxury looks like.
Oh, it's so all over the place. But I'll tell you, if I just work for a full day, and I thought, y'all sent me this beautiful microphone, and I thought, can I set that up on my nightstand? But I didn't. I'm at my dining room table like a professional. I'm adulting today. But normally, what I do is I sit up and I pull my computer, and I have one of those things that keeps your computer cool so it won't overheat. Because if I have it on my comforter, it overheats. And so I'll sit up and I pull my computer into my lap and I'm there for the rest of the day. And this, my kid's nanny comes in sometimes during the day and she's like, "Have you eaten anything?" I'm like, "No, forgot to eat," but I just pound it out.
And
It's
is,
good.
and does that mean you are constantly like what kind of information is going back and forth between you and your team at this point?
So typically when I sit down and have a full day of work like that, I'm doing project based stuff. So I've identified a need that our business has that I want to address or need to address. And I will work through that. And I've typically, so I have four kids, you know that I have four daughters and ages 5 to 13. And I cannot focus a lot of the time. So when I get a full day to focus, I'm catching up. That's a lot of what I'm doing. I am putting out fires that maybe I should have put out earlier, but they've definitely disintegrated a little bit now because I've waited so long to put them out. And and by the way, procrastination can be your friend in that regard. And I have, and I'm going through emails that have red flags. So one of my teammates one of my team members does, she checks all my emails for me and she flags the stuff I need to pay attention to, gets rid of the stuff I don't need to pay attention to, and addresses the stuff that she can address, which is amazing. I highly recommend that somebody has a right hand man like that, that everybody has a right hand man like
Right
that,
hand woman.
woman in this case. Yeah. But like right now in my inbox, I'm looking at it and I can see that one of my team members needs a bunch of credit card statements, which I'm the only one who has access to those. So I need to get her access or I need to get her those statements. I could see that I've got some wholesale accounts that need some attention. I could see that I have a Keystone Retreat recap that I need to read. That's a red. I've just got all these different things that I haven't gotten to yet. And then I also will work on stuff for my own properties that I own. So right now I need to buy new outdoor furniture for 2 of our properties. And so I need to sit down and just find that and order it. So stuff like that. And then if I have a project, my last big project was I created an owner guide, which was a huge project. It took me months and I sat and worked on that for days and days and days and days because it had to be perfect. I wanted it to be excellent. Um, and our owners love it. So it's really valuable. When somebody signs into our portfolio, we give them an owner guide and it's got everything from how we make the perfect bed to everything you need to stock in your kitchen to who to call if something goes wrong. It's got all the information an owner could possibly need.
I really like the idea of these big projects where your time is most valuably spent. And I know one of the things that you were working through at the Keystone Retreat was your finances, your bookkeeping, basically, being organized financially. Walk us through how you finally decide to act on a project like that and what you do using the example of finances.
How I decide to act on it is it becomes enough of a chip on my shoulder that I feel like it needs action. And I can procrastinate on things that don't matter for just long enough, but things that really can make an impact on the business or things that really will make an impact on the business, I can only procrastinate on for so long. And then I'll just jump into hyper focus mode. When it came to budgeting and finances and all of that, I worked with our accountants to get P&Ls and balance sheets for all of our projects. I worked with our friend Steve to figure out what some of my key performance indicators are, so that I could just have numbers that I look at regularly. And then I'm currently in the middle of working with one of my teammates, one of my team members, Amy, is going to start working on next year's budget for us by me getting together all the data of the last 2 years so that we can identify what we need to be planning for the next 1 or 2 years.
Oftentimes, when I'm at a conference and someone on stage says, "Who in this room has a budget?" a scary few amount of people raise their hand. Are you now in a position where you can see the before and the after for any of our listeners who perhaps haven't gotten into budgeting just yet?
I'm getting there. I'm not there yet.
Okay. But it's a process.
It is. I mean, for me, the P&L is more important. Am I making money? That tells you how small of a business, how small minded really. I've been running the business for a very long time. I run a tight ship and I really trust all of my team. But as we grow, I need to get I have to get a handle on uh, what we need to focus on moving forward. And I think a budget will help with that. And it'll help make decisions about hiring. But I think that I'm kind of easygoing on stuff like that, maybe too easygoing. I say I'm just trusting God and he'll take care of it, but I don't know if that's the most fiscally responsible thing to do at all times. So I think I need to trust God and he'll take care of it. And I need to do the work that needs to be done. So that's what I'm in the process of doing.
Growth it takes different forms in our industry. And I would say you're very unique in what your definition of success and what your potential growth might look like compared to some of the other larger managers in the space. And you've kind of epitomized the limited edition dynamic of keeping your property count low and your quality and your details high. Have you reached the point of growth in which that balance is becoming threatened?
I think for the first time we had that conversation about 3 months ago when we brought on 5 or 6 properties in 1 month, and everybody was stretched to the limit. And we were all like, wait a minute, we're not providing the best services to our clients right now. We have to make sure that that's maintained. We all got a little nervous. We've since gotten back to normal. But yes, we've had the conversation. No, we're not going to compromise our services for any reason. We've hired some more people just to make sure that that's the case. And then I think that staying small is not the goal. It's staying on point is the goal for us. So I don't want everything. I'm not everything for everyone. And I don't want my team to be everything for everyone. I have a very specific target audience. I have a very specific clientele, and we have very specific customers. So because of that, I think it's really important for us to continue down that path. It's been very successful with us, for us. I don't see a reason to make any changes to that. And my team's really good at sticking with me on that and staying behind that.
But then you also have this other dimension, I would argue, of success, which is these properties that you guys own, right? Real estate and the options that you have with your knowledge of short-term rentals to have those two worlds intersect. Do you talk about the family real estate plans in the same discussions with Walker luxury plans?
Sometimes I talk about my houses because they need to be addressed because they're having issues or stuff like that. But I don't think we're going to get to the point to where we only manage my houses. I don't think that's a goal. So those are just 2 more houses when we're talking on a Walker level. But if I do need to communicate something as an owner, I will say, hey, this is me, the owner of the house, speaking. And then I'll flip back and I'll say, okay, I'm back to Walker.
And one of actually the first times that I discovered your brilliance was along these lines. It was your homeowner, your property calculator. And my absolute favorite question on this, which was for those who haven't seen it, really an intake form, an opt-in form for the company to gather prospective leads, but it helps people in the area determine approximately how much money they could earn using short-term rentals as an industry, and use Sharon as a manager. And my favorite question in that survey is, correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon, but what is your professional hourly rate? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm looking at it right now. Yep,
And
that's
what I
it.
absolutely love about that is it forces these, successful people who have reached a certain degree of success in their lives to identify first what their time is worth on the open market. A lot of times as doctors or lawyers or whomever, and then to approximate how many hours, and therefore how much money would be spent managing the home. Do you hear feedback from people about how enlightening that simple question is, or is that mostly a gauge that you guys use to temperature the owner?
It's both, but we send this to people all over the country. So this is definitely to highlight the value of using a vacation rental manager, not just Walker Luxury Vacation Rentals. So I have people that are sending this our ROI calculator. That's what it's called, ROI calculator, because originally when I was looking at investment properties, I have this huge spreadsheet that I have to fill out for every single investment property. And I just needed something that I could do that was just a top level version that would spit out net revenue, cap rate, and cash on cash ROI or yield. Um, and that's what this one does. And then below that is where it goes into now how let's create a little top level P&L for you so you can figure out how much money you'll make based on what you've just entered. And I love that it says what your hours are worth, because so many people will come up head to head with a rent by owner, an RBO, versus using a manager at anywhere from 20 to 35%. I mean, sometimes 45%, right? And they just act like it's so easy to do. Why don't they do it themselves? And I think this points out, well, there's a lot of reasons why you don't do it yourself. You didn't go to school to do this. The people at my company did. You don't have a team of people to work on this. My company has a whole team of people who this is all we do all day, every day. It's kind of our career. And it acknowledges that you did go to school to do something else. So I love telling people, by the way, I don't think you went to medical school all those years to manage vacation rentals. Like, I feel like you should be the surgeon. Like, I really want you to do my surgery. I do not want you managing my vacation rental. So I think it's fun to point out to people just the obvious things that they might not be thinking about when they're considering self-management.
It's kind of part of the educational obligation that we all take on, the responsibility to help people who are not familiar with the industry see how much work goes into it. When you're in discussions with conventional real estate people who are seeing the hype and growth around short-term rentals and getting really excited, do you try to immediately bring them back down to earth?
So this is what I tell them. It's under the self-management thing. And I love for people to send people to this website because they get to read it. Here it goes. I'm going to say it as fast as possible. While the startup time commitments like building your listings and taking photos are just startup commitments, you'll also have ongoing duties, including taking reservations, screening guests, taking leads, following up with potential guests, guest communication leading up to, during, and after the stay, updating booking calendars on multiple platforms, seeking, managing, and monitoring cleaning crews, maintenance crews, inspecting and restaging the home between guests, and so on and so on and so on. And it does continue for the rest of a paragraph. And I just love to let people just read that because they just don't have any idea. They're like, I'm going to list my Airbnb. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay, first let's talk about Kleenex versus tissue.
Right.
And then we're going to go down this list and we're going to try and just tell you there is a whole, and you know what? This is truth be told. Everybody who attends the International VRMA is like, I had no idea this was such a huge industry. It is. It's an entire industry. We're all trying to be professionals. And I just think people just have no idea. So that's a good way to point out all the things that they're going to have to be involved in if they really want to do it well. And if they don't do it well and they're in a market like Austin, which is pretty competitive, then they're probably not going to get many bookings and certainly not at top market rates.
And now a word from our sponsors. Point Central provides smart property solutions for smart vacation property managers. They help streamline operations, protect the property, and enhance the guest experience using keyless access. Why? Because guests are tired after traveling, duh. And being able to go directly to that property with keyless access instead of stopping at a manager's office, this is no longer a luxury. This is a standard practice. Plus, everybody loves avoiding extra trips due to lost keys, not to mention the constant cost of rekeying. Point Central partners stay aware with an activity log of who enters and leaves the property, which helps keep track of cleaning and maintenance crews as well. You can also gain control of your utility bills with their smart thermostats. Schedule set points so guests won't be able to drastically raise or lower the temperatures, for instance. You can ensure the temperature stays consistent when the unit is vacant. Prevent costly maintenance projects caused by water leaks, mold, or HVAC issues with real-time alerts that allow you to be proactive. Visit pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And Breezeway, whose property care and operations platform helps you coordinate, communicate, and verify the detailed work and deliver the best service experience to your guests. With tools for intelligent task scheduling, quality assurance, real-time work coordination, guest messaging, supplies management, owner reporting, and more, oh my. Breezeway helps thousands of short-term rental managers and hospitality operators increase your operational efficiency and eliminate hours of manual work. This allows you to boost your service revenue. It was created by the founding team of Flipkey, which was since acquired by TripAdvisor, and Breezeway is just elevating the experience at every property they touch. Visit breezeway.io/VRMB and get implementation fees waived. That's a $1,000 value right there. Okay, let's get back to the show. Speaking of lots of work, and speaking of not really knowing what is about to happen. I want to talk about advocacy and basically the world of Texas regulation that has become your life. We had the opportunity to see one another at the Texas Professional Vacation Rental Coalition's fundraiser at the Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters in Dallas, which I thought was an amazing, amazing event, thanks to Track, who was recently acquired by Blue Star, which is a Jerry Jones company, for that inroad. And I'll share with our listeners the thing that I shared with the people at the advocacy event. What really struck me about that compound, about the tour, was what professionalism, what true world-class professionals look like, people who are at the absolute top of their game. Everything about this compound, from the shape of the rooms to the what was the name of that screen you were playing around with?
Oh, I don't
In the
remember.
Yeah, we were like touching all the electronics in the draft room, in the
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 war
drafting,
room. It was the
the
war
war
room.
room. Yeah, they were like, "Ma'am, please don't do that." Every little detail that went into this world of being a professional football association team member, and of course that goes for the players all the way down to the administrators, was such. I really admired it, and I think everybody who attended that tour admired it too. Share what was the outcome of that fundraiser and where that achievement fits in sort of the broader scope where we're at right now.
So, right now in Texas, we are trying to get some form of a preemption bill passed so that we can block cities from just doing things that are detrimental to vacation rentals. So, there are a lot of cities in and around Austin that have or are in the process of uh, doing everything from creating ordinances that overly regulate vacation rentals to ordinances that just completely block them from being able to operate. Because of that, we are trying to get the state of Texas to offer us some protections on a state level. Also, myself, I have 7 different ordinances that I have to work within. We counted the other day how many different tax implications I have just based on the properties that I manage in a small area. It's difficult to figure out how each city operates, and we really want the state of Texas to come in and help us with that. So we're asking for limitations on people putting limits on occupancy. We're asking for some kind of statewide regulation on outlawing vacation rentals altogether. And it really is a property rights issue. So we hope that Texas will move forward with the bill that we are going to put forward. So what we did in Dallas was part of the 4 events we've had so far. So we had one in Dallas, Austin, Galveston, and Port Aransas. And all of those events were meant to raise money to put towards the lobbying efforts at the state level. That event was incredibly successful. I think we raised over $37,000. All the events combined have been very successful. So what we're doing right now is we're writing checks, trying to get people on our side, trying to get people to make an impact for our cause.
And this whole world of advocacy and lobbying and fundraising, this is like adding an entirely new layer onto your professional responsibilities. Is that just something you take head on because you know there's no other way around it because no one else is going to do it?
I think there are other people that will take part, and I think there's other people that would do it. I've spoken a lot. I do a lot of education, and I am very transparent with trying to help people around me. And I really didn't see anybody else stepping forward for that position. And so when I found out that chairman of the board was available, I immediately wanted to be a part of that. Steve Milo actually brought it to my attention that I would be a good candidate for that. And I agreed that it would be something that I could be successful at. And I'm hoping to be able to prove that and hopefully continue to prove that for the state of Texas. We need a lot of hands. We need a lot of money. We need a lot of help. But I do think that I'm good at speaking to representatives. I've done a lot of expert testimony. I've spoken to a lot of mayors in all the little cities around Austin, including the one in Austin. And so because of all the stuff that I've done with city councils already, I think it kind of made a natural fit, and it has to happen. Um, and I happen to have the time right now. So I don't have the time. That's a total lie. I happen to make the time right now.
Happen to make the time. You prioritize it.
Yeah.
Um, in my world, I started off as a vacation rental manager. Well, really, I started off as a neighbor. I got my roots came from vacation rental management, and I now start to focus more on the educational side, less actual operations. I've come to see the argument of statewide preemption because I see how complicated um, the industry's world is without it. But I also go around to communities and neighborhoods and meet people who are legitimately being terrorized by short term rentals. Here in Miami Beach, I'm terrorized by short term rentals once or twice a year for some special event where the person next to me illegally rents out their house and there's a party. However, it's very different to have verifiable and long term impact on your, let's say, your cul de sac if there is not better local regulation. So I'm curious if you have ever, like I have, kind of sat on the fence about the importance of statewide preemption, but also this critical nature of ground up or community led regulation.
Well, frankly, I think we need to be that community. The vacation rental management community needs to do that ground up work to make sure that those knuckleheads who are having massive parties in illegal vacation rentals are held accountable and aren't operating consistently that way. But I do think there is room for local ordinances. I do think there's room for, I think what we're doing at the state level helps the local levels that don't have anything in place right now, because it does require local responsible contacts and things like that. But I think that there is room in it for homeowners associations. There's room in it for local regulations. It's just we don't want regulations that completely are detrimental to the people like me who are operating without any complaints, and the people like me whose neighbors are happy to have me managing the vacation rental next door.
And so what if there's like a community somewhere in Texas that you'd never been to before that that it's really gotten crazily out of control and the majority of local constituents are vehemently against any short-term rentals? For them, the best solution for that community would be an outright ban, but under this premise that would not be possible.
First of all, I don't think we should really address problems that don't exist. I don't know of any places that are like that. Uh, I do know of places where none of the residents want vacation rentals, and so they utilize their HOA rules to make sure vacation rentals can't operate. And the statewide legislation would provide for that. So I think that's the route you would take to address those issues.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned money playing a big part. Getting people to donate money is probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. Um, how much money have you donated on behalf of your company?
I think 15,000. I haven't donated a dollar except for that big event that I threw. So um, through fundraising efforts, I've spent probably about five, but I have also pledged another 10,000 towards our efforts, which we start writing checks, I think today or tomorrow. So,
And how do you communicate the importance of that to other managers like you elsewhere?
it's kind of hard. If they're not feeling the pinch, it's hard to get them to listen, because it's like they've got their head in the sand and they just don't want to believe that it's ever going to happen to them. Um, that's really difficult. That's a really difficult audience. So at this point, I just say, listen, you got to have a seat at the table. You're business owners, you know it. You know you have to have a seat at the table. If you don't have a seat at the table, you have no say in what happens. And so we're trying to pay our way to have a seat at the table. That's part of what we're doing. If you're not willing to take part in that, then when they come knocking at your door and that they say, oh, no more. We don't want this anymore. You have nobody to blame but yourself. That's not a fun message to give people, but the truth is most business owners, they know that they need to have a seat at the table, and they know that they are going to have to pay to have that. They need to be making a contribution.
So do you think it's just a matter of time before much more people, let's say in Texas, are contributing to the advocacy fund?
Here's what I have to say to Texans. We are bigger and better in every way possible. How on earth are we like the last state when it comes to this? Because when you go to the big stuff, Texas operators are not giving money. It drives me crazy because I'm so proud. I was born and raised here. So were my parents. So as a second generation Texan, I'm like, come on. It's, everything's bigger in Texas. Why are we not giving more? And where is your competitive spirit? Um, I don't know what the future holds when it comes to people donating. I think companies are getting more serious about it, which is really helpful. Meaning, the people who supply our vendor relationships are starting to take it more seriously because I think they realize, well, if you're not operating, you're certainly not going to have use for my services. So that's really helpful. But I don't know what it's going to take to get people to really start to get their checkbooks out.
And if someone listening hasn't yet felt the pinch and kind of has this on their radar, but it's not a top priority, if you were to have begun your advocacy work sooner, do you think it would have been dramatically better outcome?
I would have had to have begun about 8 years ago, which is when Austin put a ban on vacation rentals. So I can't even operate except for my grandfathered properties in my own city, which is just pitiful. Um, if I would have begun 8 years ago and had a better, I guess I would call it a handle on the type of force it takes to really have an impact on these things, then I think I would have been in a much better position as to where I am now.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose it really is like any real change in life. You have to either really want it and see the value in it, or it has to get painful enough for you to do something.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about your employees, who I know mean a great deal to you. How do you think about the success of the company through your team? Like what in terms of like legacy, if Sharon were to move to another country, what would you like to leave them with? What do you spend your time focusing on?
I mean, I call myself the CAO, so I'm the Chief Appreciation Officer. And I just have so much love for them. I could leave right now and they would be just fine. Our company would uh, probably do better. Not really. Maybe it would. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. But I don't want to take away from the work that I do. But golly, they could do it without me in a heartbeat. I don't think it would be an issue at all. And when it comes to my company, I'll tell you, I've been approached 100 times to sell. And I've gone so far as to provide top level financials to companies to get a feel for what my company would be valued at in the open market right now. And first of all, my team makes it too easy for me. So why would I sell? Our company is successful and profitable. So why would I sell? And I kind of want to get to the point to where my employees are too well paid for it to be an attractive purchase for anyone. And then I don't know what happens after that. I don't know whether my kids will want this company or if it gets, or if something else happens, or if we do eventually sell. But I do know that the team would be my first priority during a sale, and that's always that. I don't think that's ever going to change. But I do think that I do think I could leave today, and the company would be perfectly fine.
And so I'm guessing an important part of that is compensating them better than another vacation rental manager might. Do other factors, commitments or investments that you make contribute towards that?
Yeah, I love doing bonuses. When the company does well, they do well. I love calling people and just telling them how loved and appreciated they are. I think that they need to hear it. I think it's important. I'm a words of affirmation and gift giving gal. So I give my people great gifts. I can't, well, I don't know, is this coming out? I actually have one of my employees staying with me right now. So I can't tell you what I got him for Christmas, but it's really good. And so
Is it the thing that we talked about secretly?
it's not, because
Okay.
when I went back to them, they don't travel enough to have as much of a
Okay.
need for
Okay.
that as the thing that I bought them, which I
Okay.
think they're all going to be stoked about. But that's a future thing, I think. I'm
Mm.
planning a trip to Cabo with my team just because I went and I loved it. I want to take them there. I also make sure that we all appreciate each other regularly. So, and I challenge them in personal ways. So, my most recent challenge to my team, I want them to feel valued more than just to get a good paycheck. Yes, a good paycheck is definitely a part of it. Good benefits are a part of it. We brought on health care this year. And keep in mind, I have 7 full-time employees. So we're a very small company, but they all have the opportunity to have health care now. We did a 401k program this year. So those are 2 things we just implemented. Everybody has good paid vacation time. I have maternity leave time for my people, which I just do. I don't do it through any program. I just do it. So they just continue to get paid even though they're gone. And I think those things are really important. I value their families and I ask them about their families. I talk to them regularly and I ask them how they're doing. We have monthly one-on-ones. I think that's really important to keep people happy. But I really believe that more than the pay, it's the person. Like, are they seen and viewed as a valuable part of your team and an integral, important part of your team? Or do you treat people like, you could do without them? And maybe you could do without them, but that's not how you want to treat people. So that's not the way that I work. And I feel like my team is my family. So we're about to have our Christmas party tomorrow night. And that's why one of them is in town from Colorado. And we're going to have a meal that my husband's making steaks. And we're going to sit down around my table at my house and we're going to enjoy time together. And I'm going to give him gifts. And we're just going to spend some time together. And I just look at it as a second family. It's who you talk to most. So
And would you, I'm guessing, point at that focus, building the team, empowering the team, making the team happy, as the big way to let go, to remove yourself and not have the thing fall apart? Is it focusing on the people?
I think that definitely helps. I think it creates loyalty among the people. I know my people love me, and I know they wouldn't go work somewhere else without some serious thought. They have so much. Oh, that's another thing, the freedom. So they all work from home. And people think I'm crazy for that, but I have the most productive team. So I cannot, within reason, say you need to walk into an office and be dressed a certain way and do certain things every day. I just don't. We don't need that here where I am with the people I'm working with. But I think that focusing on that appreciation, like you just mentioned, what it does is it makes for an incredibly loyal, hardworking team. So you don't have to worry about everything else so much. You don't have to worry about what they're doing or if they're cheating you or anything like that. I don't think about any of that stuff ever. So even them working at home, I don't think about what they're doing or if they went to the doctor's appointment or whatever. Like it doesn't matter because they're all doing such good work.
Love that. Anything that you'd like to predict for the coming year in the world of professional vacation rentals?
I mean, I have hopes, more professionalism, more advocacy, things like that. Predictions. I heard someone today say I'm on the education committee for VRMA, and I heard somebody on that call today say there are going to be companies that are going to go out of business because of this recession. And I really want to predict that over the next 2 or 3 years, we're really going to get to see who the hacks are and who the real professionals are. If we are going into a recession that greatly affects vacation rentals the way that everyone says that we are, I don't know of many people who are still claiming that we are recession proof. If everybody says that and it happens, I think it's going to highlight like the true believers and the fakes. And I think that we're going to get to see who the real professionals are, because the people who aren't doing it professionally, I think, will get pushed and squeezed until they're gone. I hope that the professionals can maintain and that they can make it through and become stronger. Because I think that we need people, and I don't mean to sound any certain negative way, but we need companies like my company. We need people who are local companies who care about what's happening locally, who are invested in their communities, working, doing their absolute best with good teams, employing lots of people. That's what we need. That's what's going to make our industry thrive.
That's a nice note to end on. I called this episode One of a Kind because if you know me at all, you know I'm obsessed with anything limited edition. Limited edition is one of VRMB's oldest marketing theories, which argues that one-of-a-kind positioning, doing the things that do not scale, is actually the secret to success in the vacation rental movement. And Sharon is most definitely one of a kind, human, but she's also a one-of-a-kind vacation rental leader, and this is her superpower. Sharon has the capacity to do what she wants when she wants to. And I've always believed this kind of freedom is available to anybody in our industry, big or small, so long as you're able to actually define it. Otherwise, you'll see that the opportunities pull yourself in different directions, eventually spreading yourself thin. But that power, that focus now has Super Sharon doing double duty with her advocacy fundraising. How many Sharons in our industry are going to step up and participate in their local regulation efforts? I really don't know the answer to that question. And I think the industry's at stake. But I like the way that Sharon puts it at the end. You either get it or you don't. And I tend to think that people who are listening to a podcast like this, they get it. So do make sure that you've subscribed to VRMB's advocacy podcast. It's called How to Save Your Vacation Rental Business, and it's hosted by Dana Lubner. And you can subscribe on anywhere podcasts are hosted. Sharon is actually making a cameo in that podcast this week. The episode is titled Don't Mess with Texas, which, after listening to Sharon, I think you can probably attest is an accurate depiction. Lastly, if you heard those little bell sounds in our conversation ding and got intrigued about something that was mentioned, we'll be releasing VRMB's 2023 Trends Report the first week of January, and each of those topics are teasers in our advice for anybody planning this coming year and into the future. You can sign up for our newsletter for early bird pricing at vrmb.com. Until next time.